Hi, I'm Anthony Underwood, and this is Greetings from Appalachia. On this week's show, I'll be talking to Kim Williams, small business owner and first openly LGBTQIA plus community member to sit on her Appalachian City Council. But first, what exactly is Appalachia? If you live in one of these counties between northern Alabama and western New York, or anywhere in West Virginia, you live in Appalachia. If people think of it at all, and you're around my age, what you know about Appalachia is about what you would learn from Bugs Bunny.
You all care to practice with me for the square dancing tomorrow? Promenade across the floor, sashay right on out the door and into the glade, and everybody promenade. Step right up, you're doing fine. I'll pull your bed, you pull mine. You get again, look at it before. Break it up with a tug of war.
And yes, of course we like to dance in ritualized circles, and we do have beards made for tugging, and do have difficulty telling the difference between human females and admittedly sexy rabbits. But there is more to Appalachia than tattered overhauls and senseless violence with the neighbors. The modern version of Appalachia has been largely shaped by the notorious McCoy and Hatfield feud of the late 19th century. The reporting at the time focused on hillbillies and a conflict between two families that was reported as being started by a fight over one family killing the trespassing pig of another. In reality, the conflict was about old family grudges, magnified by those families fighting on opposite sides of the Civil War and contesting with each other afterwards for the control of local natural resources and their development. Really, no different than a lot of conflicts that happened across the Midwest and the Rockies at that time. But the press found it far more interesting and more entertaining to talk about pig-related grudges than about the real issues. From well-meaning liberals who flooded into Appalachia to help and so often treated us like ignorant children, to cynical conservatives who managed to convince many Appalachians to vote against their own interests in the name of fearing people that were somehow seen as different from us. The 20th century has seen Appalachia used and abused without much benefit. Worse than that, those of us who grew up here have all too often internalized the way outsiders see us. We've gone from marching under arms to protect our democratic, labor, and civil rights against tyrannical coal and resource companies and the public officials they bought, to voting for corporate and conservative powers that most certainly do not have our best interests at heart. We've come to believe the very worst about ourselves, and in doing so, we've been disarmed in the struggle to be what we choose and want to be. We must say no more. The real Appalachia is full of opportunity and far more diverse than we are given credit for.
The sportos and motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads.
Yes, even more than that. We're Bill Withers and Dolly Parton. We are the innovative city of Pittsburgh and the beauty of Mount Katahdin. We are John Nash and Booker T. Washington. We are Reggie White and Mary Lou Retton. We are the Green Bank Radio Observatory in West Virginia and the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. We do have our problems. We have to be honest about that. Too few of us are skilled for the modern economy, but we're working on it. We don't have enough public infrastructure. But I've worked all over the country, and I've never met more hardworking or personally friendly people than the people of my Appalachia. We can learn the rest. We just need leaders committed to the public good, far more interested in empowering our people than protecting their own power. Now, please join me as I interview Kim Williams, City Council member and the first member of the LGBTQIA+ community to be elected to public office in Vienna, West Virginia. Welcome, Ms. Williams, and thank you for joining us tonight. So
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here. So my first question is going to be, a few weeks ago, when you were in a council meeting, you were the single vote against the city providing an incentive, a tax incentive, an incentive of some sort, for a large chain restaurant to open in Vienna, West Virginia. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what your thinking there was?
Sure. So what that tax incentive was a B&O tax relief for up to 3 years if a business has a $250,000 annual payroll, at least $250,000. The business that is coming in was it's actually the nation's largest chain restaurant group, which is Darden Group. They want to operate a Longhorn Steakhouse. Great. We welcome that in Vienna. But I don't think that they need that tax break in order to get established. That's how it was presented to council, was they needed the tax break to get established.
And how much tax break did you what was the projection on that?
Well, you can't really say. It's projected upon your revenues and how the B&O tax breaks down. So, which bothered me that they wouldn't tell me, well, what's this tax break worth? Is it $10,000? Is it $100,000? I think that's important. But regardless, it's going to be, tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. And the other thing that bothered me about it is, meanwhile, during COVID, we didn't provide any B&O tax relief to any of our businesses that struggled. They struggled to stay open. There were all kinds of restrictions, so would have been nice to give them a B&O tax relief for at least one quarter, but we didn't do it. Right. And in my opinion, we gave away money that we didn't have to, because, let's face it, those large companies are going to come regardless. It's, it's dollars and cents. It's a profit model for them. They know what they're going to make. Whether we give them that money or not, they were going to come anyway.
Right, because they already made that decision from their own personal economic finance point of view, as whether or not it's worth it.
Yeah. Right. So, I'm glad they're coming. I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's great. And we'll get, 1% sales tax off of that. But we didn't really need to sweeten the pot by giving them money that they don't need it,
So you said Darden.
Meanwhile, we didn't take care of the businesses who have been here for years and years and years. So really, the small businesses, and I mean, like our coffee shops, or little gift shops, or hair places, or whatever, that really have struggled hard during this time of COVID. So I wish we would have done that, but the focus was not on them, and I think it should have been.
And when you're talking about Darden, for those who don't know, that's the folks that own Olive Garden and Longhorn and a bunch of other well-known chains. They're not suffering.
No, they own Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen, which we also have in Vienna. And coincidentally enough, in Vienna, we put that B&O tax exemption on the books, that ordinance, several years ago when we brought Cheddar's in. Okay. So it's like, I like to call it the Cheddar's rule, right? So now Darden's coming in and they're bringing Longhorn, and they're taking advantage of that. No, I understand they're going to take money if they can get money. Who wouldn't? But right. We're just giving money away when we don't have to.
So, what are some positive, thoughtful ways that local and municipal governments can play a role in creating the conditions for economic growth?
Yeah, that's a difficult question because, we're kind of limited on the municipal side on what we can do. Um, you know, a B&O tax exemption is a good thing to talk about. Parkersburg, as a matter of fact, with their CARES Act money, they gave away, I think we're on 6 quarters now of B&O tax exemption, up to, I think it's $500.
And
That's
Parkersburg is
nice.
a neighboring town, of course.
Yeah.
We don't-
For us, it's kind of hard on the municipal level. I know people have talked about tax breaks for like people who want to move into, well, I'll just say for Vienna, for example, move to Vienna who can work from home
Mhm.
because, you have a lot of folks, and I'm sure you probably know some too, Anthony, who work for companies that are in Chicago or San Francisco or whatever, and they live here in our town, and they're paying their housing, their property taxes, they're shopping in our stores, and they're buying gas in our gas stations, et cetera. So to give them an incentive to work from home, whether it's sometimes they want to give people free internet, or I'm just trying to think of some other tax things that they can do.
Mhm.
But anyway, you get my point, which is the world is changing, and we're not. There are more opportunities for people to work at home. And I think we've especially found that out after COVID, because a lot of people have transitioned to home and they're not going back.
Sure. Sure.
So to look at things in that way.
Right. So you had mentioned that there's not a lot there's not a wide variety of things that local and municipal governments can do. Are there roadblocks to how local governments can, especially municipal governments, are there roadblocks to things that they can do to support economic development in small Appalachian cities?
I don't know how I would say. Let me think about this for just a second, exactly why I want to say this. But, we have home rule here in Vienna, and we have it in Parkersburg as well. And that's made a big difference by being able to get the 1% sales tax, which has been good for the municipalities. Roadblock wise, I feel like it seems like locally that we kind of shoot for these businesses that are not living wage businesses. Vienna is very much a retail-based economy, a service-based economy, and I get very concerned about that because, as retail has kind of trending, brick and mortar retail has trended down and online shopping is trending up. When you forecast what is our future going to be, I think is very concerning to those of us who are in these small towns where we are so dependent, like in Vienna, we're so dependent upon the Grand Central Mall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how we attract different types of businesses. In Vienna, there's really not a place for like a manufacturing to come in, okay, because we are retail and we are just homes, residential areas. So I don't really have any good solutions for that. I think it's just something that really plagues Appalachia. I'm sorry, I don't really have a good answer for it.
That's okay. You had mentioned earlier about trying to attract remote workers who work all over the country but can live where they want. And so maybe that the city needs to concentrate on luring workers in addition to luring businesses. So could you elaborate a little bit more on how that projected permanent change into a greater amount of remote work could impact cities like that?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes I also think too, there's this struggle to stay or to come back to West Virginia because, I'm 53 years old. And so many of my friends have moved away. They're located in Texas or North Carolina or whatever. And they don't, it's just difficult to stay here sometimes. And I see a potential when you can work from home, you can live anywhere, right? So for me, I've worked my business is internet based, so I can be anywhere and do it. And so that was, you know, broadband is a big thing in West Virginia. Fortunately, in Wood County, it's pretty good, although we have some spots where it's not so good. But where I live and where you live, it's really good. So one of the best things about West Virginia is just our natural resources, in the sense of, you know, we have great places to go and hike and whitewater rafting and kayaking and all those things that really interest people, especially younger professionals, to be out, to go outside and to enjoy themselves.
Sure.
And it's where we're located in West Virginia. You're also very close to major centers, whether it's Pittsburgh or Columbus. You can get somewhere pretty quickly. So it's very attractive to live in West Virginia for me, because there's all these things that you can do if you're connected to, if you like to go kayaking or you like to go hiking. We have the best state park system in the country. And then we're so close to, you know, a lot of major cities to get out and go somewhere.
Sure.
And the cost of living is relatively low.
Right.
And I know for Vienna, we have just wonderful parks in Vienna, and
Sure.
we have a wildlife preserve. And so I think Vienna becomes very attractive to live. And, you know, if you can work from home and you don't have those expenses that you have in a major city, paying rent and parking and all that stuff, you have a nicer quality of life, and, you know, still have a decent enough job, and you can live well.
Right. So really, you know, cities, states for that matter, need to focus on quality of life issues, being welcoming and supportive and diverse and all those other things. Transitioning to that type of question. So you're the first member of the LGBTQIA plus community to be elected to the city council in Vienna. And that was just last year. And congratulations on that again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you talk about your experience from that point of view in running for office, and how your first several months in office have been?
Sure. So, you know, I'm a Vienna native, so I'll say that first, you know, and I own a business here in Vienna. So I think a lot of people have known me, or they know me and my family. But it was very difficult in one way. I can't hide who I am. You know, everybody knows I'm a lesbian, right? But really what I focused on is the stuff that really matters to people that live in Vienna. It's like infrastructure, you know, we have an issue with people's water, houses flooding because of pond run, or their water lines break, or they're concerned about the parks. They're concerned about Jackson Pool. They're concerned about John Mansville. What's going to happen with that? So I focused in on those issues because it's really what's important to people, and just try to make myself available as much as possible to answer all the questions. But I did get attacked. I got kind of, I don't know how to put it. It was unfortunate, you know, what happened, because I don't think my sexuality really has anything to do with it. You know, I've been with the same person for 27 years. I'm like a lot of people. I mean, I have a mortgage and, you know, 3 rescue dogs, and I'm like everybody else, and to be attacked for that was unfortunate. But I did well. My vote totals were good. I had a solid win, and I was very proud of that, because I felt like, you know what, the people of Vienna, they can see who I am as a candidate, what I brought to the table, and they took the chance on me. And so, you know, since the election's over, now we're in our 7th month of serving, and it's been great. I mean, I focus on the issues. I talk to people all throughout the weeks leading up to the council, and get a lot of discussion going, and try to wrap my mind around it, and try to make the best decisions that I possibly can for the city.
And like I said, it was a wonderful victory, and I know that we're very proud of that you won, and so many people I know were very supportive of you. But you're right. I think they voted for you, and they knew they voted for you.
I do think that representation matters. It really does matter. And so I'm very proud to win, you know, I see it sometimes with a lot of young kids, they know me, or they, I could tell that it just means something. And I wish that I would have had that when I was growing up in the 80s.
I can imagine.
So it's a good thing. And I think it's just good for Vienna because, it kind of, Vienna is actually a pretty diverse town if you think about it, but it just needed to happen. It needs to happen all over West Virginia,
Sure.
because our communities are diverse.
Yep. They're a lot more diverse throughout Appalachia than people give us credit for. So hopefully they'll come to realize that and understand that we can be a great place to live while you work for huge corporations in Chicago and LA and Texas. So,
yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be here with us this evening to be our inaugural interview. Again, thank you very much. And we certainly wish you continued success in representing the people of Vienna.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hi there again. It's the end of the show. At the end of every show, I'm going to help you remember something that they want us to forget. So we talked to someone from West Virginia today, so let's stay in that state. The governor of West Virginia is Jim Justice. He's the richest person in the state. He owns tons of coal mines all throughout Appalachia and other places. He owns huge amounts of property, and he owns the elite resort in the state, the Greenbrier, which you may have heard of. It was going to be the home of Congress in case of nuclear war. So he's super wealthy. He's very connected, and he owes a lot of money to other people, both in taxes and in bank loans. One of the bank loans is for over $50 million, and the bank that he owes it to has not been paid, even though the loan is due. Why doesn't the governor want to pay it? Well, that's a good question, but in his public statements and his attorney's public statements, their theory is this. The bank that he owes the money to was bought out by another bank, and he doesn't owe the new bank anything, because that's how banks work. So he's refusing to pay more than $50 million of a loan he owns just because somebody else now owns the bank. It's curious that at the same time about the same time that this news came out, the Governor Justice, announced that there was going to be a brand new state lottery just for the people who have gotten their COVID vaccinations. $1 million jackpots, new customized trucks, free vacations to state resorts, that type of thing. Free college tuition. The problem is that this has done nothing after several weeks now to increase the COVID vaccination rate. It's plateaued in West Virginia after being one of the nation's leaders, and even being offered millions of dollars and all sorts of prizes. The rest of the people in West Virginia, unfortunately and benightedly, do not want the vaccine, even for a lottery. And so, not saying there's absolutely a connection between the two, it's just curious. I don't know how we can trust the people in government if they don't own up and comply with their own contractual obligations, even if they're private. Something to remember. Don't you forget it.